Evam janam nipatitam prabhavahi kupe. Kama bikama manuya prapatam prasangat. Kritvat masat shurashina bhagavan grihita. Soham katam nivisrijeta vabritya sevam. Dozo. That means go ahead on. Evam janam nipatitam pravavahi kupe. Kama bikama munaya prapatam prasangat. Kritvat masat shurashina bhagavan grihita. Saham tatam visrijeta vabritya sevam.
Evam janam nipatitam prabhavahi kupe.
Evam janam nipatitam prabhavahi kupe.
Kama bikama manuya prapatan prasangat.
Kama bikama manuya prapatam prasangat.
Kritvatmasat surasina bhagavan grihita.
Kritvatmasat surashina bhagavan grihita.
Soham katam nu vrisrije tava britya sevam.
Saham katam visrijeta vabritya. Evam, thus, janam, people in general, nipatitam, fallen, prabhava, of material existence, ahikupe, in a blind well full of snakes, kama abhikamam, desiring the sense objects, anu, following, ya, the person who, prapatan, falling down in this condition, prasangat, because of bad association, or increased association with material desires. Kritva atmasat, causing me to acquire spiritual qualities like himself, Sri Narada. Sura Rishina, by the great saintly person Narada. Bhagavan, O my Lord, Ahita, accepted, Saha, that person, Aham, I, Katam, how, Nu, indeed, Vistraje, can give up, Tava, your, Britya Sevam, the service of your pure devotee. We'll say together. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant Narada Muni kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave that service? Srila Prabhupada. As will be seen in later verses, even though Prahlad Maharaj was directly offered all the benedictions he might have desired, he refused to accept such offerings from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the contrary, he asked the Lord to engage him in the service of his servant, Narada Muni. This is the symptom of a pure devotee. One should serve the spiritual master first. It is not that one should bypass the spiritual master and desire to serve the Supreme Lord. This is not the principle for a Vaishnava. Narottam Das Thakur says, Tanderet charana sebi bhakta sanibhas, janame janame hoye abhilash. One should not be anxious to offer direct service to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised that one become a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Gopi bharatu padakamalayur das anadasaha. This is the process for approaching the Supreme Lord. The first service should be rendered to the spiritual master, so that by his mercy one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to render service. While teaching Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Guru Krishna Prasade Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. One can achieve the seed of devotional service by the mercy of the Guru, the spiritual master, and then by the mercy of Krishna. This is the secret of success. First, one should try to please the spiritual master, and then one should attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says, Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado. One should not attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by concoction. One must first be prepared to serve the spiritual master. And when one is qualified, he automatically, and when one is qualified, he is automatically offered the platform of direct service to the Lord. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj proposed that he engage in the service of Narada Muni. He never proposed that he engage directly in the service of the Lord. This is the right conclusion. Therefore it is said, Soham katam nuvisuje tava britya sevam. How can I give up the service of my spiritual master, who has favored me in such a way that I am now able to see you face to face? Prahlad Maharaj prayed to the Lord that he might continue to engage in the service of his spiritual master, Narada Muni. Do you need more air? Are we averse to oxygen, air, and such things here? Might as well breathe while you can. Just a little fan, maybe. Maybe? It's like Bombay in here. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurundadatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this verse, with the first verse, Om Jnana Timirandasya. In the Gita, Krishna mentions Nadate Kashchit Papam Nachaivam Sukritam Vibhu. There's the material world and the material energy, which has its own process. Mayajakshena Prakriti. It goes on after the Lord glances at it, and someone may complain about it, and there are lots of complaints to be made about the material world, and there's not an official complaint department, but if there was, that would be the main place that people would line up. When the government builds a city, they also put in a prison house because they know that a certain percentage of the population will commit crimes, even though the laws are published. People know, drive on the right side of the road, don't go faster than the flow of traffic, and don't kill people and so forth, don't steal and rob. They do it anyway due to being out of alignment with proper human behavior, and therefore there's a sense in which they should be separated from the rest. And is it the government's fault? No, it's the fault of those who misuse their freedom as a citizen, and they violate other people's rights, and therefore they have to be separated. So Krishna says there's full facility for freedom in the spiritual world, and even in this material world. Krishna gives Jagnartak Kamanon Yatra Loko Yam Karma Bandhana Tadartam Karma Konteya Mukta Sangha Samachara. that if one stays in the process of serving Krishna, yajna, then one will be liberated and also have everything one needs in this lifetime. And the humans and animals are born into darkness. We wake up in a body and we're not sure where we came from. And by involvement with the material world in past lives, then we're impelled to act in various ways. And in the beginning, we may not have an idea about yajna and the purpose of life. But then there are those souls who are liberated. Iha yasya hairdase karmanam manasagira nikila apyavastasu jivan muktasu uchite. It's mentioned that those who have learned the process of devotional service and who are engaged body, mind, and speech in the service of their spiritual master, they also become liberated even while they're in this body. And they can become effective at leading and instructing others how to do that. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as indicated by Prabhupada here, had wanted such persons to go here and there and offer people an opportunity to align their lives in service with the Supreme. Because up to that point, living entities are just wandering. Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagavan Jeev. But Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Beach, when they meet a guru or someone who's aligned and authorized by another guru who's following in the line of personalities who are following the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so they're considered liberated persons. They can also teach those who are still enamored of the material world, or even if they are not enamored of it, they're frustrated by it, but they don't know how to get out of it. And when they can receive the association of such personalities, whether it be the devotees who go door to door, as Prabhupada says in this chapter, chapter 9, this is the purpose of the Krishna conscious movement, to go knock on people's doors and interrupt their whole afternoon watching the game. We also have devotees going here and there to various cities and setting up a place where people can come in and have some tasty prasadam and then sit with devotees and associate. We have places online. And Srila Prabhupada went to great lengths to start centers all over the world, just so people could come and associate with the devotees and see what devotional service is like. And those who come into the association of devotees will meet Vaishnavas and then start to emulate what they do. Daushada tata sadhusangata bhajana kriya. They get a little bit of association, and then their faith in the process awakens, and then they want more association, and then they'll take it up themselves. We see this again and again. That's, let me follow the process. It always seems surprising because the default mode in the material world seems so strong that everyone's resisting devotional service. So when a great soul comes and says, no, let me follow, we become elated, right? And the idea for the material world, as mentioned by Shukadeva Goswami in the 82nd chapter of the Bhagavatam, or is it 87th? Prayers Personified Vedas. 87, is to give everyone a chance to go back to Godhead. And the first guru, or the one who represents Krishna in this world, is Balarama. Balarama is known as the Adi Guru. And what is his qualification? He has a service attitude toward Krishna. So much so that he takes all the service. He becomes the abode of Krishna. This is described in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that to serve Krishna, he expands himself into all the paraphernalia that we buy at IKEA. He becomes personally manifest as the bedstead and the armoire, the mirror. We know Krishna looks in a mirror and Dwarka becomes enamored of himself. And his shoes and his Brahman's thread and anything that's a support to Krishna, Balaram thinks of it, and by his potency as Vishnu Tattva, he expands into that. And then to facilitate those souls who are reprobate, he manifests as the Purushas. The intention is to give facility to those souls to take up service. So there's a Chaturvyuha. From the Chaturvyuha, there's a Mahasankarshan, then there's a second Chaturvyuha, then there's the Mahavishnu, and the Mahavishnu expands then into Garbhadakshayi Vishnu, and Kshirodakshayi Vishnu. All of them have different roles in developing a platform upon which conditioned souls can have facility to come back to Godhead. And then these are all expansions of Balaram. He's the first expansion that comes from Krishna. And their mood is all the same. They're in service to Krishna. And then he becomes Shesha, who is called the remainder, which means if there's any service left over after I've covered everything, I'll take that too. And we also are expansions from this Sankarshana, who's the reservoir of all the living entities. And therefore our purpose is very clear, which is to serve the Lord also in the same mood. But we have a special tattva, which is that we can wander around and go here and there as we have this minute independence through which we can misuse if we so desire and get ourselves in a heap of trouble. So Balaram is there with the intention of reclaiming the conditioned souls. How do we know that? It's mentioned in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that near the time when the creation is about to start over, it starts to wind down. There's an Apple Watch that says, after, how many is it? How many trillions of years? 311 trillion. They have that app. 311 trillion years app. You have to upgrade, get the new version. When it comes near the end of 311 trillion years, then there's a little app that total destruction of everything. Not just the lower planetary systems of the middle, but everything gets destroyed. And that starts over. It's cyclical. And just before that happens, Shankarshan, one of Balaram's expansions, becomes slightly annoyed. Why is he annoyed? Have you ever felt annoyed on Sankirtan? Come on, say yes. Well, what made you annoyed? Yes? Yeah, give him a mic. We want to hear this.
I gave someone a book and I told him that this book helps to deal with stress and anxiety, and he said, "I like stress."
Okay. This is our complaint department we're opening up here. Go ahead, Deva Vrata Prabhu, and welcome back to ISV. Hare Krishna. And Bhakta Kir also, Hare Krishna. Like Narada, you never know when he's going to show up. He's just like...
I have this experience that I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I've woken up on time. I've chanted all my rounds. I read. I set up the table. I'm doing all my responsibilities perfectly. So why isn't every person I meet taking a book?
Yeah, and they...
this frustration. It's like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, but still people don't take.
And that lines it up well, because Lord Balaram, in his service to Krishna, lines up the material world in such a way that there's facility for everybody. There's the inherent frustration in the material world, that's built in. And Krishna tells everybody, or reminds us, Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartinorjuna, mamupetya tukonteya punar janma nividyate. By the way, the places of suffering from topmost planet to the bottom. And then there's also a system propagated throughout the universe, the Guru Parampara system, so that anybody can catch on anywhere, locally even. The Guru Parampara means that there's a way that people are empowered by following the system, and somebody in their local town can find somebody who's representing that, and it's seemingly indirect, but it's direct, just like a current that goes through copper wire. If you grab the copper wire in any place, you're going to feel the current coming through because it's connected. Yet, the table's set up, everything's got this spiritual potency and available, and then, no thanks. I'm good. That's right. That's the mantra of the material world. And Prabhupada said even he visited somebody in the hospital in ICU with tubes coming from every orifice. And, how are you? I'm fine. Prabhupada said that's the fine of the material world. And so it's out of not anger so much, but a sense of frustration and not being able to save every soul that Sankarshan becomes slightly annoyed. And then from his eyebrows come out the Rudras, the 11 Rudras, that begin their dance of destruction. So let's go home and we'll start over tomorrow, which is the cyclical process, the Shrishti Leela, that Krishna manifests the world out of a sense of compassion, and it becomes manifest, and then he inhales again, and then it mixes everything together. All the souls are there within Mahavishnu, and then they come back out again, and everything's recreated. Tables come back up again, and everyone's got an opportunity, but many souls don't take it. Nonetheless, this principle of mercy, of giving mercy, is there in the Guru Tattva. And that sense emanates from Balaram. And it's being expressed in this verse. Evam janam nipatitam bravavahi kupe. So, Prahlad Maharaj is the recipient of Nrsingadev's mercy. He comes for Prahlad. And in his prayers now, he's saying that I'm offering my respects first, even though Nrsingadev's in front of him, to my Guru, because I recognize that my Guru saved me. My Guru gave me the opportunity to worship you, and therefore I worship you first. And Prabhupada says this is rightly done. And the mood here, that he says, Soham katam nuvisrujaya tava britya sevam. Then how could I give up that service? Balaram epitomizes this. We see in Ram Leela, when Ram left Ayodhya, he was commanded by his father, Arya Vachasa. He gave the order based on an obligation he had that you have to go to the forest. And Sita argued to go along, and Ram could accept that because she was being faithful, following her husband, although she didn't absolutely have to. Everyone would have understood. But the older brother, generally in the material world, there's sibling rivalry, and if someone becomes encumbered somehow, then the other ones, although they may express outwardly some regret, inwardly they're thinking, no, that means I'll inherit, not you. And this is the motivation of the material world. Let me take advantage for my own sense gratification of other people being encumbered. But Lakshmana, who is the younger brother of Ramachandra, demanded that I'm going with you. And on their preliminary journey, as it started off and the reality of the situation unfolded, and that was that Ram and Sita, who lived in royal palaces their whole life would be now sleeping in the outdoors, perhaps sometimes even on the ground. So Lakshmana vowed that I'll never go to sleep. I'm going to stay up all night. He didn't sleep the whole time, actually, because in the daytime he was also serving Ram and Sita in many different ways. And this is the prerogative of Balaram, who comes as the first expansion and the greatest servant, unmotivated servant of the Lord. Lakshmana didn't appreciate the last part of Ram's Leela. Ramchandra is following this sense of duty. And in that sense of duty as a king, setting the example, the dharma of the king, he took that so seriously that Lakshmana was a little annoyed at the last part where he estranged himself from Sita. And we find from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, at that point he said, I'm not coming as a younger brother anymore. Because in a Vedic family, then the older brother is like the guru almost. And he said, that's it. So we find in Vrindavan that Balaram is Dauji, which means the older brother. And he doesn't want to, as Lakshman, he doesn't want to come as younger brother anymore, so as Dauji. In Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, he's constantly looking out for Krishna. In fact, his mode of service to Krishna also includes some sense of vatsalya, that he's protecting Krishna in various circumstances. And we'll notice with interest probably that some of the times when Balaram doesn't go with Krishna on his daily jaunts to the forest and elsewhere, that's when Krishna gets in the most trouble. For instance, in the story of Aghasura, and thereafter, when all the cowherd boys and calves are taken away by Brahma, Balaram's not there. Do you know the other time when he's not there? In Kaliya. Both times was a titi for Balaram's birthday, and he was expected to stay home. On birthday, you're supposed to do some extra tapasya. It's different from America that, like, we're going to take you to Chuck E. Cheese, and you can have whatever you want. On the other hand, in the culture there, is that you stay home, perform some penance, and you also give charity to everybody else. So Balaram was doing those kinds of duties, and Krishna, he didn't really get into trouble, but there was a lot going on based on his re-expanding himself into the cows and boys, and then for a whole year charading as the cows and boys where it was just him. He had his internal purpose, which was to directly take service from all the residents of Vrindavan. But we find in this pastime also the ontological relationship that Krishna and Balaram have. This is a conundrum sometimes, because sometimes people think, well, Balaram is real strength, and then Krishna's there, so which one's stronger? And there was some inquiry about that when Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, and after all, Prabhupada had established Krishna Balaram as the main deities. And then he also emphasized how Krishna Balaram and Gaur Nitai are non-different, as is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Chaitanya Bhagavat. But then in the back and forth, they noticed that Balaram's leaning on Krishna. So there's a way that Krishna's stronger. But in the pastime of the cows and the boys being remanifest, Balaram himself was interested in what was going on. More than interested, he was amazed at the goings-on in Vrindavan. And until Krishna, step by step, removed the layers of Yogamaya, Balaram couldn't see what was actually taking place. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in that section, comments that this shows that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even though Balarama is non-different in the first expansion, still, he wouldn't understand the entire plan of Krishna until Krishna revealed it to him. Moreover, as far as his position is concerned, we find in the first chapter of the 10th canto, which is dedicated to the appearance of Krishna in this world, that before Krishna appears, there are the Shadgarbha Asuras. They were sons of Kalanemi, and their grandfather was Hiranyakashipu, nice family. And they had independently taken up a mode of penance in order to follow in the footsteps of their grandfather, which was to get a benediction from Brahma that they wouldn't be killed by anybody. They listed all the normal suspects. And when Hiranyakashipu found out, he was disturbed because demons like to be the only ones that think of things and that do demoniac activities at that level. And he cursed them that they would be born in the next life as sons of Kamsa, who was their father in the last life, Kalanemi, that was Kamsa previously. And they would take birth in the womb of Devaki. Is this getting confusing? No? It's all right. In the womb of Devaki, and they would be killed one after another. So, luckily, our acharyas explain what's going on here. And these Shadgarbha Asuras take birth in the womb of Devaki, and we know that Kamsa has imprisoned Devaki and Vasudeva for fear of the 8th child being born and killing him. So in the beginning, he gave back the children, or for at least the first child, thinking that, it's the 8th child, not this one. But then Narada sped things up by saying it could be any of them. So then he started killing all the children. That was providential, because each one of them represents one of the obstacles to performing devotional service. And Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mada, Moha, Matsarya. 6 in all. These 6 horsemen of material consciousness are what impedes us from taking to devotional service. So how does one remove the obstacle to coming to devotional service? There's a lesson in all this, because when these 6 Asuras are killed after they're delivered from the womb of Devaki, then Sankarshana comes. And he's born from the womb of Rohini, of Devaki, but then he's attracted to the womb of Rohini. And it appears there was a miscarriage. But what actually happened was, these 6 impediments to devotional service were removed one after another. And interestingly, one of the ways that they were removed was because of Devaki's fear of losing Krishna. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Prabhupada follows the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur closely in this chapter, and he says that we should also be afraid of material existence as much as Devaki was afraid of Kamsa. And because of the fear of material existence, of being swept up again, as Prahlad Maharaj says in one of his prayers in this same chapter, which everyone should pay attention to, because we're going to have to memorize this chapter too pretty soon. Might as well start early. And he says that I'm not afraid of you, Lord Nrsimha, like everybody else, but I am afraid of material existence. Nishpijaman and Upukarsha Vipo Prapanam, because I can be pulled back in. Maya has a throwing potency and then a covering potency, and I can be ground up, like a big wheel being ground up. So one should be afraid of material existence. Meanwhile, one should take shelter of the internal potency. And Balarama arranges that. He holds the plow. Sometimes at Rath Yatra, people say, well, this pastime really is between Krishna and Radharani. Why do you need Subhadra? And why do you need Balaram there? And many have suggested that they are the precursors to coming to devotional service. It's not that one, as Prabhupada says in this purport, can just directly walk in and begin worshipping Krishna. One has to approach Balaram Tattva. Balaram is all accommodating. And he makes a facility for anyone who would like to worship Krishna. And that's what the Guru does. The Guru, let's look at an Acharya. What do Acharyas do? They go around the world and they make facility for people. Be it in Iceland. I just got a call from Navina Nirada Prabhu, who is in Iceland. And is there facility in Iceland to take to the process devotional service? Yes, there is. The Krishna consciousness movement. Yes, thank you, Siri. The Krishna consciousness movement is ubiquitous. It's in every part of the world. This was Balaram's potency, the Guru's potency, to say, we'll make depots everywhere so that people can go and take to Krishna consciousness and take up the process. So Balaram has the plow. He cultivates the space, just as when you're about to grow a garden, you have to cultivate it first. It means get all the weeds out of the way and make the soil fertile. Then the seed of devotional service can grow, and the seed of devotional service comes when one listens sincerely to the order of the spiritual master and then follows it. That constitutes the seed of bhakti. And in that fertile soil, without weeds to impede its growth, or without any kind of perversion of the message of the Guru, that is that. Wow. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. 92 people online. Say Haribol. Balaram goes out of his way to cultivate the environment and give facility for everyone to enter in and take to devotional service. This principle of Guru Tattva comes from Balaram. He holds the space for everybody. And those who follow in his footsteps, number one, his service is unmotivated. He doesn't want anything in return from Krishna. He's eternally the servant, and he takes every kind of service that's offered or that he sees as available. And there's a pure mood of service. This is the essence of Guru Tattva, that we don't take the message of Krishna and pervert it because we're trying to exploit the resources of the spiritual master. For instance, we're bequeathed with so much facility to do devotional service, and if one then tries to usurp that and take it for oneself, then this is called Guru Druha. It means the one who tries to enjoy the facility that's given by the Guru. But Narada and other representatives of Balaram himself, shows the pure mood to present everything clearly, directly. Srila Prabhupada was the emblem of this, so that they would be a transparent medium for taking up service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Guru Tattva. And therefore, on Balaram Jayantī, there's a way in which we can appreciate the practical nature of Balaram's service, and that is to create facility for us to take devotional service. And if we pray to him on this day in the same way that Prahlad Maharaj is praying to Lord Nrsingadev, that let me be an unmotivated servant and take up the service that's been passed down through the Guru Parampara, the energy of Balaram. And by such service, one will, without doubt, come to the perfectional stage of serving Krishna. And as Prabhupada says here, when one's qualified by serving through the Guru Parampara, then Krishna avails himself even personally so that one may directly see him. Might note as a final point that although this is happening for Prahlad Maharaj, right now Krishna has come in the form of Nrsingadev, one of the most wonderful manifestations of Krishna. Still, he's standing right there, and Prahlad Maharaj says, yeah, but first my Guru, I'm not going to forget him, even in this circumstance. Mayavadi's Prabhupada said on one morning walk, when he walked down an embankment in Mayapur, because there was nothing but fields that were being cultivated, and there were little sloping areas. And he took Bhavananda's hand to get down, and then he threw it away. And Bhavananda was shocked, and so was everybody else, because it seemed so abrupt. And Prabhupada said, "What is this I've just done?" And they said, "We don't know, Prabhupada. You threw away Bhavananda's hand after you walked down." And he said, "This is Mayavad philosophy." He said, "You take the help of the Guru, and then when you attain liberation, you throw it away." But Prahlad Maharaj shows the mood, even at the point at which Krishna personally appears. He says, "Yes, but my Guru, I'm not going to give up my service to my Guru because that's my connection to you, my Lord." And this is the mood of Vaishnavism, to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, 1,000,000 times removed, Prabhupada said, and that means liberation. Now we have a few minutes for some questions. Yes?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I first of all want to appreciate Devavrata Prabhu when he was sharing that he set up everything, but nobody was taking book. I think this week and last week combined, he sent me around 35 people's contacts, actual names and phone numbers. And we contacted them, and many of them also joined. Some of them actually joined Bhakti community. And he actually is Narad Muni because that's what he does. Wherever he goes, he just spreads. He probably has given books to many more. He could just get number of those people. So his mood of service is really wonderful. And when Narad Muni was talked about, I remembered that Narad Muni himself, how he got into devotional service by mercy, by Mahat Seva, and then Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. He also had the contamination removed. And then finally he had the Ashakti, Bhava, and the love for Krishna. So much so that he saw Krishna, but then later on, Krishna gave him so much fearlessness that he traveled throughout the world and preached. And in the end of his life, he got a spiritual body, which is Narad Muni. And he's also the spiritual master of everyone. I was just thinking how we compare Narad Muni with Balaram. Is there any relation?
Well, first of all, I'll like to note that in the pastimes of Narada Muni, the sadhus came and stayed during the rainy season, but they stayed longer. It says twice the time. The reason was that that Narada Muni, the little child, he was not Narada Muni at the time, he was a child, but he was so open to Krishna consciousness and so naturally devoted that these sages stayed another season after the rainy season. It's there in the text, just to give him everything necessary for him to start his devotional service. And that kind of reminds me of you. You have work to do, high-level jobs you and your husband do. Still, somehow or other, you bought a new house. Why? To enjoy? No, to make a bigger space so people could stay there. And then you'll stay extra time to cultivate the mood through which people can take to devotional service. So don't mind, but this is the mood of the Balaram Tattva. It's like, okay, I'll extend my stay. Here's a person with a little sincerity. I'm going to give extra facility to do that. So that's the mood of Balaram. And your question was about Narada Muni and...
Balaram is also the Adi spiritual master, but Narad Muni is also...
Anyone who follows the Balaram's mood also becomes a representative. And this is the admonition of, not admonition, it's the order, or it's the call of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that everyone should become qualified. And then Prabhupada would say, well, it's not difficult. It just means that you represent properly and you present it as you've heard it. And when you do that, then you become a via medium for others. So anyone who follows that mood of Balaram as a pure servant, unmotivated, also becomes a via medium and qualified to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And so there are many, many spiritual masters, including Narada Muni. And as Prabhupada notes, within our Gaudiya Sampradaya, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of branches and sub-branches that spread out, all of those who were faithfully following. And then he distinguishes them from those who didn't faithfully follow. Because there were some branches of Advaita Acharya's tree, as an example, who decided to make stuff up for their own aggrandizement and not follow the teachings of their father. And sometimes this happens. And therefore, to distinguish the live branches from the dead ones, Kaviraj Goswami points this out. And he says that some didn't follow, and therefore they died off and became useless because they weren't representing what the trunk of the tree, Advaita Acharya, was teaching. Okay, we have time for 1.5, 3 more.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
One online, all the way from Mysore. Go ahead.
Yeah, Maharaj, I was checking that when you mentioned the Hiranyakashipu cursed the Shadgarvas, I was just wondering, demons also had the power to curse? Sorry, I didn't understand that one part clearly.
Sure. Hiranyakashipu became very powerful by his practice of austerity. There's a way in which those who figure out how to manipulate the material energy can develop some temporary power. Even at a very gross level, some people in this world, they figure out how to manipulate the political system for a time. Because in Kali Yuga, this democracy is supposed to mean that everyone's educated to a certain point where they can make a wise decision. That doesn't happen anymore. As people are hapless, they watch cartoons when they're kids, and then they go online and watch all kinds of other stupid stuff, and they don't have any idea of what civilized human life is. So then, when any character comes up, and how did I get into this? I better make sure I answer this question quickly. Yeah, so you can manipulate anything in the material world and have some temporary power. What to speak of mystic yogis? They understand the principle that there are inherent powers in material nature. It's Krishna's nature. And when they focus their attention on a particular part of the material nature, they start taking on that quality. Krishna explains it in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so mystics who are materialistic, they can develop some amazing powers. And they just misuse them. Demons do that all the time. They start thinking, I'm powerful, what do we need God for? In fact, that's the demoniac mentality. As soon as one gets any bestowal, is bestowed with some kind of power in this world, then they think, what do I need God for? I'm so smart. Whereas devotees think, I didn't deserve it. And when they get some misery, then they think, I deserved more, but Krishna only gave me a little bit. So demons can get powers too, but they're short-lived. Whereas devotees, they're endowed with many different kinds of powers, but they only use it when it's effective in Krishna's service. Otherwise, they're not interested in touching those types of energies. Okay, 1, 2, and then, well, let's go to Mysore first to honor our online audience. Vaikuntha Nayaka Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam,
Hare
Guru
Krishna.
Maharaj, all good, Prabhupada. Actually, that point about Guru first that you are mentioning, and that Srila Prabhupada also mentions, it reminded me of something that we heard from Madhvanand Prabhu in our Puri Yatra some years back. He was quoting his Guru Maharaj, Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj. And it seems apparently Maharaj asked one congregation that if you go back to Goloka, what will you do? And everyone was saying, okay, I will actually fall at Krishna's feet, or this or that, something like that. And Maharaj apparently chastised them and said, the only answer, the only thing that you are supposed to do is to find out where your Guru is, go and stand behind him and wait for his order. So that stayed. It was very touching, I thought, and that it's very similar to the point that you mentioned about the Prabhupada's and Ramananda's pastime, that once you go there, you don't forget the Guru. And I had one question. Like, if you could please explain how Balram is Lord Balram is favorable to Duryodhan in Mahabharata. It's something that I've not been able to understand. So, if you could please help understand it.
Well, it's highly instructive. You may see that your favorite personality, transcendentalist, it's like he's friends with him. Balaram is a transcendental personality, and he has personal relationship with Duryodhan. During the Shamataka jewel story, in fact, that's what it's mentioned. In Matila, he stays there, and that's the time in which he trained up Duryodhan and how to fight. You have a student, becomes an expert, and there's some relationship there. And there are various times you can count when Krishna and Balaram are slightly at odds. When Rukmini was kidnapped, when Krishna kidnapped Rukmini and then took her away and then captured Shishupal after he had, Rukmini rather, after he had been obnoxious towards Krishna and claimed that he was going to all the soldiers, he was going to capture Krishna or kill him, and then otherwise he wasn't coming home. And Krishna captured him, and then he started snipping off his beard. And Rukmini was in a little bit of distress. So when Balaram caught up to the party, he chastised Krishna. "What are you doing this?" And what to speak of when Arjuna kidnapped Subhadra, and Balaram was angry until Krishna talked him down. So these are indications of various they're personal dealings with friends and so forth. You may find yourself with a friend at some time, and everyone says, "How come you're spending time with that person?" It's like, because I'm a person, they're a person, we go way back, and that's the way it is. Okay, there was one more, and then, yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Watching the time, everyone, I know everyone has to go.
I'm a little always confused with the Balaram Tattva, Vishnu Tattva. We always say Vishnu, eventually comes from Balaram. But, I understand Balramji serves Lord Krishna in form of Balaram, Lord Ram in form of Lakshman. And even when it's Vishnu, it serves in form of Anantashesh. So, I'm always, confused. Is it the first expansion means Lord Krishna and all the Vishnu Tattvas on one side, and then Balramji is serving the Vishnu Tattva? Is that how it works?
Departure eva hidashantarama bipeta dipayate vrvatahetu samana dharma yastadrageva hicha vishnu chaya bipati govindamani purusham damaham bhajami. Krishna is one. Vadanti tat tat kavidas tatvam yajganamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. But he expands himself into many. And the first expansion that comes from Krishna is called Balaram. And he's just like Krishna, only he's white, and he has a different abhiman, or attitude, which is that I'm a servant of Krishna. And then he expands himself, also does Balaram, to many other different forms. The idea is basically that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, and to enjoy, you have to have unlimited variety. So he expands himself into various other forms for his own enjoyment. And Balaram is that first expansion. And he's Vishnu Tattva. And then there are other Vishnu Tattva expansions. And for the extremely tedious details, you can read the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, because all of that is carefully documented. And if you, since you're an engineer and one of the great thinkers in the Krishna consciousness movement, you can read that book and find out the various you can look at the schematic and see exactly who's who and who expands into which form at which time for what purpose. Because Rupa Goswami has painstakingly gone through that because so many people asked a similar question. And that's what the acharyas do, is they fully enumerate the various points that are maybe highly technical in detail so that there are no questions left unanswered, and it's all in that book. Om Tat Sat. So today is a Jayantī. Living beings, ordinary living beings can't claim Jayantī. We're forced by material nature to wake up in some weird place with people staring at us. And it's like, okay, here we go again. But Krishna, by his own volition, appears in the world very purposefully to do good for others. We're extremely lucky because God, Krishna, reaches out to us personally. And Balaram represents that personal connection. That's Guru. That nobody who's sincere is without somebody who is qualified to, like, I'll take you step by step. And so on the day of Krishna, of Balaram Jayantī, we can pray that Krishna, please make me sincere, or let me become sincere by the power of Balaram, and realize my sincerity and use it to become a servant of the servant of the servant, and to take up unmotivated devotional service in this lifetime by the grace of Guru Tattva, and be happy in life. It's the only way to be happy. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in part or in whole. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nantakoti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Look, there's Radhika Rasika, the artist formerly known as, we wouldn't say his name. Radhika Rasika is much nicer, I think. Hare Krishna. He just got initiated.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Everyone was so happy in Toronto because he's such an affable spirit there. Hare Krishna. Congratulations.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Haribol.
My humble obeisances. Haribol.
Okay, we'll see you all in a few hours. Work a little, take a little nap. We'll come back. We'll have a big festival tonight. This is the best festival of the year almost. It's Balaram Jayantī, 5 o'clock. Hare Krishna.